Hello again and welcome to the channel. My name's Annie and this is my creative detour. I hope you've all had a great week and thanks for stopping by today. I am doing a fun project that I've been playing with over the last few days and I'm calling them my DIY window envelopes. And you can see that I've got an example here and I'm going to show you all of the measurements and show you how to make them. So we're going to do a full step-by-step tutorial, and I've got about 5 made that I will show you at the end, but I will show you the example one, and I'm going to actually do a few different things with them because I'm leading on to another project in my next video that I'm going to use them in. So let's get set up and I'll show you what we're making and the resources to go with it. Okay, so here's the envelope that I've made. Now it has a swivel closure on the back. It actually has a window in the front. Let me take out all the butterflies. It has a window on the front and swivels shut and locks shut. I've made them so that I can put in a whole lot of ephemera and use them as storage in my craft room. However, I'm going to do something very clever with them in the next project, which I'll show you at the end. I'm making a journal for them all to fit in. But as a standalone, it's a great project for you to use for Happy Mail, for you to put some little bits of ephemera in. You can see that I've also created a tag that goes into it. And I'll show you a little bit of a twist where one of them, I turned it into an envelope with a tag in it. But you can see that it is designed so that you can put a whole lot of bits and pieces of ephemera into it, but you can see what's in it. So that's why I'm calling it my DIY window envelopes, so that you can see all of the little bits of ephemera that you put into it. Now, with the offcut, I decided to create a tag because you may want to use it as a background if you wanted to, and you could just use it in your journals like this without putting ephemera into it, or you can use the tag as something else. The butterflies are going in there, and you can see that this one, it is an etymology one, and I have used some stamps on it, and I've used some bits and pieces out of the craft room, and the paper that I'm using is actually 49 and Market, and the reason I'm using that is because of how thick it is. So it's really, really sturdy paper. And you can see that I have just decorated it with some stamping and little bits of ephemera, and I've stamped onto the page a little bit more. I've put a little bit of washi on it, and I've got a little bit of linen on this one actually, and so I haven't overdone it. I've just done a little bit of embellishing so that it doesn't get too thick. But as I said, I'm going to do a step-by-step, so let's look at our measurements. Now, the paper that I'm using, as I said, is 49 and Market, and this is an older one. It's called Vintage Orchard, and I think this one's Turning Point that I'm using. And when I'm picking out my paper, I'm looking for something that has got a thin amount of information that's on one side. And that's because the piece of paper that folds around to the back and is the back of the envelope, I want it to have some sort of decorative edge to it. So you can see here the leaves are on this bit. The front was quite plain, and I've actually cut a hole in it and put some acetate in it. So when you're selecting your paper, look for something that's got a small, thin bit of information here that you can use as your guide. And we're going to take a 12 by 12 sheet and cut it down to 8.5 by 9. So I'm going to turn my sheet of paper upside down, and I'm going to cut it at 8.5 inches first, which is around about 21.6 centimeters. And this is what I'm going to use to make my tag out of in a little bit. So let's just sit that there because we'll need it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually looking at the height now. So I need 9 inches. Now if I cut 9 inches off, I'll probably cut through his head. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut around about 1 inch and 3/4 away from his beak, or 1.5 inches away from his beak. And then I'm going to cut my 9 inches off of that. And you might think, oh, well, Annie, that was a waste of paper. Well, not really, because I want to make sure that I get my bird nicely centered on the flap around. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do now is score it. So I'm going to start from the left and put it in with the 8.5 at the top, and I'm going to score at 3/4 inch. Then I'm going to score at 2 3/4. Then I'm going to score at 6 inches. And then I'm going to turn it and I'm going to score at 1 inch from each end. So I'll go through those measurements again so that you can write them down if you want to. Okay, so we started with having our 8.5 inch at the top. So we did 3/4 inch score first, which is 1.9 centimeters. Then we did 2 3/4 inches, and that's 7 centimeters. And then we did 6 inches, which is 15.2 centimeters. And then we did 1 inch in from each end, which is 2.5 centimeters. Okay, so that's all of the scoring. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut out some of our corner rectangles. So you can see that I've already cut a few things out, but I'm cutting out the corners of each one. So it's a little bit hard to see at the moment, but it'll become clear in a moment once I've got them out for you. I'm cutting the score line out, and I'm not putting much of a mitre on it. I'm putting the slightest slither of a mitre. But I am making sure that I've got that score line out. Okay, so now you can see that I have my 4 corners out, and we're just going to now fold and burnish that. So there we go. Now you can start to see that we're getting a bit of an envelope working. So that's our flap down of our envelope. Let me show you. Here's our envelope. It will fold up like this, and this will be our flap down, and then this will be our closure. And you can see that our bird is nicely positioned on that piece of paper. Let's round the corners on all of them. So I'm just going to put a 1/2 inch rounded corner on all of the edges. Now this is a really good stash buster project because one sheet makes one envelope and a coordinating tag with it, which is fantastic. Now what I'm just going to do now is on this edge, so we can see that here's our envelope and the flap goes like that. On this edge here where it's got the cover's got to come over, I'm just going to cut that back just slightly, and I'll show you how big a piece I'm taking off. It's tiny. Just a little slither so that it closes a little bit better. I'm just rounding that off. You can see on my mat it's tiny, and that's just so that the flap comes down better. So there we go. There's our base for our envelope. Okay, so let's do our window next. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out my 2-inch punch, and I'm going to fold in the flaps, and I'm actually going to punch through the flap and the cover. And I'm going to push my punch. This is a Stampin' Up punch, but you can use whatever punch you like. So I'm pushing it all the way to the base, and I'm just centering that. So I'm taking a little bit of time to get it centered this way, and it's pushed all the way in. And I'll do that again from the other end, making sure that it's centered. Okay, so keep these 2 discs because you might want them for decorating. And you can see now that it has cut through our flaps, which is fine, and it has cut some circles into it. Now, my punch needs sharpening, so there's always a little bit of a burry bit that I snip off. And I'll get my knife now, and I'm just going to get my steel rule and my knife, and I'm going to join up the steel ruler to the edge of both those circles, and I'm going to cut from circle to circle, nice and cleanly. And it takes out our window. So there we go. There's now our DIY window envelope, and you can see that it closes over, and it's quite flimsy at the moment because it doesn't have the acetate in it, but it's nicely positioned on the back with a bit of a feature, and then we'll put some acetate into it. So let's tape in our acetate, and I'll show you how I do that. So I'm getting a piece of double-sided tape. Now I'll tell you the size of this. This is a 9mm double-sided tape, and now that's just under 3/8 of an inch. It's probably closer to 5/16. And I'm going to run that double-sided tape right up to that edge, but not over it, and put tape in. And I'm not going to let it go over the top and bottom flaps. I'm just going to cut it short, but I do want it up to the edge, and I'll run a little bit of tape in here as well, and we'll burnish that down. And that's now ready for our window. But before we do our window, we need to do a little bit of stamping, because I want to stamp before I put my acetate in. Now let me bring out my box here that's got some bits in. So you can see that I've got my acetate cut for it to fit into there, and it's cut a little bit shorter. I can tell you the size of that, but it depends on what your punch does. So mine's about 2.5 inches by 6.25 inches, but depending where you put your punched circles, you might need to adjust your acetate. My circles are around 1.5 centimeters from the top and the bottom, which is 9/16 from the top and the bottom, just so that you know. So what are we up to now, Annie? We're going to do a little bit of stamping. Now these are just some stamps that I have in my stash, and I think it's stamp number 595 from Poppy Crafts, and we get that here in Australia from Craft Online. However, you can use whatever one that you're wanting. You can see here that I'm going to be using sort of like an invoice stamp that's got a few lines on it, and I'm just going to use some VersaFine, and I'm not going to use a block. I'm going to actually do it by hand because I want it to be quite organic. That's good. I don't want it to be perfect, actually. And this one's got a bit of a rough edge to it, and it's a little bit like an invoice. That was a bit crooked. Doesn't matter. That will do. Now I've got some inky fingers, so let's get rid of those. Okay, so we've done a little bit of stamping just to put a little bit of texture onto that. Let's ink into the edge of our window because we won't be able to get to that later if we want to ink. And I can now stick my acetate in that I've done that. Yes, I've been playing with these for a day or so and having lots of fun with them actually. I started off doing them because of the other project that I want to put them in. As I got into making them, I thought, oh, can't do all of this in one video, it's going to be too long. So I ended up making a few extras and turning it into a separate project so that you can make the envelopes by themselves if you want to. Alright, so you can see I'm just putting a little bit of washi down so that that edge of that acetate is covered. And I'm just cutting a little bit of a curve out of it where my circle is, just in case it's showing. I don't want it to show through the acetate. I've almost run out of this one. I use this one a lot. This is an All and Create, and I love this one. It's number 15 from All and Create. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of art glitter glue on this one here because that's the leading edge of putting it into the envelope. When you're putting things in it, we want to make sure that this washi is stuck down really well and is not going to lift. So I'll just put a bit of art glitter glue onto it so that it really does stick well. Hopefully the lighting's okay. I'm filming at night because I'm running a little bit behind. I was playing for way too long and then I got waylaid today helping my husband put some shelves up in my grandson's bedroom. We're putting up a whole lot of shelves so that he's got more storage space for his Lego because we've been doing lots of Lego. Okay, you can see that there we go. We've got our acetate in and the envelope now is working nicely. And we will glue that shut in a little bit, but we need to do a few things first. We need to put a closure on it. So let's make a closure out of our scraps. I have collected my scraps and I'm going to punch out something that's going to look nice as my button. So I like this little bit of information here with these words on. So I'm going to use that as my top, and I'm punching 3 1-inch circles. Now you could punch 4 if you like, because let me show you on this one. You can see that on this one I've punched a circle to go over my brad. We're going to put this on with a brad, and I have got a circle on there that matches the coordinating paper. So when you look through the window, you don't really notice it. So here we go, I'll show you here. So you can see on this one, you can hardly see that piece of paper that is cover it. So if you cut 4 circles, then that will be fine. But the brad that I've got pulled out, the legs are too long. It's got really long legs on it. So I'm going to need to use a piece of scrap paper because a 1-inch circle is not going to cover it. So you can see that I've got 3 circles and then 1 piece of scrap to cover it up. So let's make a button or a swing closure. And I'm just going to glue the 3 circles together and give that a really good burnish. And then pull out a brad, and I think I have one here. I do. And we're going to position our brad so that our little toggle is probably about 2/3 of the way over our flap. So when you're lining it up, put it about 2/3 over. You can see my circle is 2/3 over it, and we're going to put a little mark on that. And then when I spin that, it should release. So that looks about right to me. So I'm just going to push a hole through my back cover, but not too big. And then I'm going to push a hole where I marked my little circle closure. And I'm going to get out my nail file and just sand that back a bit for both of them. And get your brad and push it through your little button and put it into the back of your envelope, and then splay your brad and then glue over your little patch. It's a perfect pattern for hiding a patch. It's not going to be that noticeable. Okay, so now when we close our envelope, we can spin our toggle and it keeps our envelope closed. Isn't that fabulous? Now, if you didn't want to decorate, you could be almost done here. Like I said, I'm going to be sewing my envelopes into a journal. So I haven't glued some of mine shut because I want to stitch, put a 3-hole pamphlet stitch in and stitch it into a journal in my next episode. And then after I've stitched it in, I will be able to close it shut. But for the purposes of this video, I will glue it shut, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But let's decorate the front. So I have a bee because I have birds and butterflies, and so this could be a perfect one for either birds or butterflies to store. Now I'm going to just quickly decorate by putting a little bit of washi. I think I will use some of this one. So this is just a craft washi that's got a little bit of text on it. And I'm going to put a little bit down here. I'm just tearing it. I hope you all are well. I've been talking a lot. Been in like task mode for this video, haven't I? So I'm sorry about that. Hopefully I'm in the view. So I'm just going to glue that on there. I've got a specimen stamped out, and I want a little bit of this one as well. Let's tear a bit of that off. Yes, like I said, we've been busy today putting up some shelves for my grandson. He's got quite an array of Lego, and both my husband and I play Lego with him, and we do big projects. Actually, we do some decent sized projects. I'm just putting a little bit of glue onto my pattern paper here. Let me just bring those dimensions in to the view in case you want to take a screenshot of my sizes. And I have a tiny little label that says specimen that I stamped out of Tony Stamps, and I have a JLeeLoo number. So I will put both of their information into the description. I use quite a lot of Tony Stamps in this project. So I'm just going to put those down here. Now let's just close it up so that we don't go over. So my husband took our grandson to Bunnings to get a couple of shelves, and then came home, and then they went, Nonna, how high do we want the shelves? So we worked that out together. You can see that I'm just doing a little specimen cluster down there. Now I also have a piece of linen. Now you can see here I've got a scrap of linen in a natural sort of colour, and I tore off a little swatch of linen that is all raggedy, which I think's fantastic. And we'll put a little bit of washi on the top. Just put a little bit of glue stick on that. And I will glue on my piece of linen, and I'm just going to draw. Before I do that, I want to draw around the edge because I think the edge needs it. It's going to draw around the edge of this window. Okay, I think I want a few zigzaggies on there and a few zigzaggies on there, and that might do. And I'm just going to put my linen on. I'm just going to put some art glitter glue just on the paper, not on the window, and glue that linen on. I'm okay about it sticking up, and we'll wrap it around the back. That's good. Now I just want a little piece of this, I think, to sit up here. Tear a little bit off, and we'll get our bee. Ah yes, that's good. It's just adding a few extra layers. And I'm going to put some glue on here and on my bee, but I don't want it to go through the linen because I don't want it to seep onto the acetate. So I'm being very careful to make sure that I only put the glue onto the paper or where there's card underneath. I don't want it to seep through the linen and go onto my acetate. There we go. That looks nice, doesn't it? And I have a tiny little jump ring embellishment to go on there as well. It's just got a little bit of a floral decoration on it. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Hopefully the lighting's pretty good. I set up a few extra lights because I'm filming at night. I'm liking all of this frayed edge. Okay, so there's our decorated envelope. I'm happy with that. So what we might do is we might close that up, and then we'll make the little tag to go in it. So I'll show you how I close it up. I'm going to use double-sided tape again, but I'm going to fold this back. So you can see here I have my envelope, and I've folded back the flap, and I'm just going to put a little mark with my pencil there and there. And that's because I only want to put double-sided tape up to that line. I don't want it to go over that line. And give that a bit of a rub and take off the paper. And now I'm going to run some glue around that flap. So I'll do it up close so you can see. I'm going to go around that flap up to the line and over the top of that double-sided tape. And I'll do the same here. You can see I'm not going over that line. I'm going close to the edge, nowhere near the acetate. And I'll just smooth that out so that it doesn't ooze. I don't want it to ooze onto my acetate. And now we can close our envelope up and give that a really good hold, squeeze. And we haven't glued down our flap. So you see my flap comes down. You might be thinking, Annie, why do you have a flap there? The reason I have a flap is so that you've got more access into your envelope. Quite often, like in a business envelope, they'll have a flap that comes down similar to that. So there we go. It's I won't open it yet. We want that glue to set, but that's closing nicely and our swivel is working well and the front looks lovely. So now let's cut down our tag, and I've got some sizes here for the tag. I'm going to use our bird here. And you can see that the pattern paper is 2 3/4 by 6 5/8, which is 7 centimeters by 16.7. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that off the bottom. I don't want that much on the bottom of that. And we want 6 5/8 by 2 3/4. Now you can see that I have a circle here out of my circle pot. Now I have a circle pot because I love circles on my desk with all different size circles cut with punches or my circle cutter. And I just found a circle that is pretty close to the size of it to put on it, and I'm going to trace around it. Now you could use, if you don't have circle cutters, you could use a glass or a cup or a bowl or something like that, or a lid of a jar to trace around to get your circle. And I'm just going to trace around it, and I'm going to cut a circle on the top of it. And the reason I'm cutting a circle on the top of my tag is because I have circles on my window. So I want it to look like it's part of a family, like that it belongs together. So you can see that I've just cut that off. So it wasn't difficult. And I'm going to punch the corners. And I've done the same with the backing. Now you can see the tag mount is 2 7/8 by 6 3/4, which is 7.4 by 17.2. And I'm just going to cut that as well. Punch those corners. And I'm just going to glue that together. So let's glue that down. Now we could ink that. This month I've sort of had a few projects in mind to get a little bit more organized in my craft room. And so some of the projects are a little bit organizational sort of driven. So I have a box here, I'll show it at the end, of some chocolates that we got while we were away. And we ate the chocolates when we got home. Then I thought, oh, that's the perfect size to make into a little journal. And then when I started looking to put envelopes and things in it, I thought, oh, I'm going to have to make some envelopes. And so that's how we got to where we're at now. Okay, so there's our journaling card to go inside it, or our tag, whichever you prefer. And let's slide that in. And it just slides in perfectly and looks lovely through the window. I think I'd just like to stamp a stamp on this saying Field Notes. So let's do that. I have Tony's stamp here called the Collector, and I'm going to pull out Field Notes and Collect It. So let's just stamp those. Field Notes. Oh, Collect It upside down. And I'm going to leave it because that's got Annie written all over it. I may stick something over the top of that, but I'm not sure that I like it. I think I prefer it just as is. I'm okay with it being collected upside down because people would stamp things upside down all the time. Maybe we should put a date on it. Check that one. That one I've got the right way around. There we go. 27th of September 1918. Perfect. That looks okay, doesn't it? Even though we've got something upside down, I'm okay about that. Goes to show that I don't always do perfect things. I make mistakes as well. And it's good for you to see that I make mistakes. Let me clear the decks and I will put this together and I'll show you all of the other ones that I've made. And I'll also give you a little glimpse at what I'm doing for my next project and what I'm putting the envelopes into. I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so here we go. Here's our finished envelope. I'm calling these my DIY window envelopes, and you can see that where I've punched out the circle to create the window, I've used the offcut to decorate it. And we've got a swivel closure, and inside we have a little card that you can either use as the backing card in the envelope, or you can use that as another project down the track. But let's put it into my journal to see what it looks like. And the reason for making these was to maybe house some ephemera in a journal. So there we go. I've just got it pinned in for the moment because I've got to take my thumbnails, but they look nice in the journal, don't they? They're lovely, and I like how the light hits the acetate. Okay, let's have a little look at some of the other ones that I've got. So this was the one that I showed you already, and it swivels open, and you can see that all of them are made out of 49 Market. The reason is because of how thick the card is, or the pattern paper, and you can see that I have some butterflies in this one. Now you could either have the butterflies just in the envelope and use the card for something else, or you can put the card back in and then have the butterflies and the ephemera floating around on the inside. So there we go. Just a little bit of linen fabric in the background, some stamping, some butterflies, and a little bit of a jump ring embellishment and some numbers, and it closes the same way. So that's that one. Now I did do one the same as this one. It was one that I did earlier, but you can see that this is not glued shut, and that's because I want to use this and these other two here in my next project. Now my next project, I am using this packaging. Now my husband and I got these gin pralines in Germany, and we ate them and they were delicious. But you can see I haven't pulled the box apart yet. I purposely wanted to pick florals to go with Gretchen, and I'm going to turn this into a little journal, and I'm going to actually stitch in my envelopes into the journal with a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I don't want to glue this one shut, but I'll do that on Tuesday when we make the journal together. So that's the same as the one that I made with you today, with the collected the right way round, and that will go into Gretchen, as I said. Now I have two other ones, one etymology one with field notes, and it's the same. It's not glued shut yet, but that's what it looks like. It's got some flowers on it, and then if we close it up, it's got a couple of butterflies on it, some stamped labels. I did some stamping on the paper, bit of washi. That's got a little bit of cheesecloth on it, and then it's got a JLeeLoo number on it. And once again, it's got a card to go in it as a journaling card or a tag. So that will go into Gretchen. The other one that I did was some flowers, and you can see that I've got flowers stamped out here, collected flowers, another number on it, some washi, some stamping, and a little bit of other coloured washi. And it opened on the other side, and there's our poppies on our tag, and we'll have a look at what it looks like if it's closed. There we go. You can see that this one doesn't line up perfectly. I did this one fairly early on, and I've adjusted the measurements so that it works better with a 2-inch hole punch. So a few trial and errors while I was figuring it out. So those 3 will go sewn into Gretchen. The last one, it actually was the first one I made, and I made a few mistakes on this, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's got some cheesecloth on it. I stamped 15 cents, and I've got a few of Tracy Fox labels on it, some of Tony's stamps from Crafty by Tony, and it's actually a tag. So this one here, I turned it into a tag, and the reason I did that was because I glued down the flap here, this 1-inch flap, top and bottom. I glued it down too quickly. And so then when I went to put my tag in, I couldn't fit my tag in properly. So just be mindful of that, to glue your flaps down in the right location. But it was a happy accident because I ended up turning that into one that I'm going to use as a tag. And I'm thrilled with how they turned out. I'm looking forward to doing the Gretchen journal for you in the next episode, but in the meantime, I'm happy that I've got 3 other ones that I can use in some journals, or I can send them out to some friends. I really hope that you like my DIY window envelopes, and if you do, give the video a like, and think about subscribing to the channel if you're not subscribed. That would be wonderful. And I just want to say a big thank you to all the people that have been liking my videos lately and subscribing. I really appreciate it. And I've had a few hypes as well, so if you've hyped the videos, I really appreciate it. Thanks for that. And I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend and have some time to play in your crafty space and make something fun and new. And I will see you all on Tuesday with another project. Thanks so much for stopping by again today, everybody. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you soon. Bye for now.